So the next discussion we'll have is on the Native Curriculum Bill. I'm sending it back to Shawna and as well introducing my relative and good friend, Kisha James, who is an enrolled member of the Wampanoag tribe of Aquinnah, Aquinnah in Oglala, Lakota. She's a recent graduate of Wellesley College, a union member, a lifelong resident of Massachusetts, and a youth organizer and archivist of the United American Indians of New England. Over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I'm here to speak about S1529 and H2421, an act relative to celebrating and teaching Native American culture and history. This bill addresses the lack of Indigenous curriculum in Massachusetts public schools by proposing that the state works with tribal nations and Indigenous organizations to develop a curriculum that will ensure that all children attain cultural competency in understanding Native history, cultures, and current issues. School children in Massachusetts rarely learn about Native American history or about the contemporary Indigenous peoples who live here, including my tribe, the Aquinnah Wampanoag, as well as the Mashpee Wampanoag, the Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapoag, and the Nipmuc, as well as Native people in Massachusetts enrolled in tribal nations throughout the US and Canada. I know this because I attended public school in Massachusetts and was told by my teachers that my people had gone extinct. I can tell you that it is very damaging for generation after generation of Indigenous children to be taught a curriculum that largely ignores our existence. It leads to us feeling marginalized and invisible, and can also lead to us being bullied. For example, my twin brother was so severely bullied by our classmates for his long hair, which is an important part of Lakota culture, that he was forced to cut it off. My firsthand experience was that we were almost completely erased in the school curriculum. On the rare occasion when there was something about us, it was not presented in a correct manner and often included extremely out-of-date information. It also often included offensive language and stereotypes. For example, we were taught that Columbus discovered America and brought the Indian civilization. My brother and I were forced to participate in a Columbus Day pageant, an extremely humiliating and dehumanizing experience. It was the first time I felt like I didn't belong in my community, and I realized that the pain and suffering inflicted on my people by various colonizers was a joke to my teachers. I think this is part of why Indigenous students can often struggle in school. Indigenous children are certainly as intelligent as anyone else, but being made to feel invisible on your own land is not a good feeling. The lack of Indigenous curriculum is also very damaging to non-Native people. In speaking to youth and adults all around the Commonwealth, I have found a sad level of ignorance about Indigenous peoples and issues. I have been asked whether we all live in teepees and why I am not wearing buckskin and feathers. I try not to fault people when they do this because they have been exposed to so little information about contemporary Indigenous peoples. I have heard non-Native, supposedly well-educated adults say that they thought Native people were all extinct, or that we deserved what happened to us because we were violent savages, or we are seen as exotic pets instead of human beings who live, work, study, and raise our families right here. Relatively few non-Native people are able to say whose land they live on. There's little knowledge about the histories and cultures of Indigenous people, whether genocide, the great dying that happened here even before the Pilgrims showed up, tribal sovereignty, treaties, our ongoing stewardship of the land, our solutions to the climate crisis, and much more. There is a barrier between Native realities and knowledge and what non-Native people know about us. And having proper Indigenous curriculum included in the standards is how we can bring down that barrier that has existed for centuries now. It will be important for tribal nations here in Massachusetts to be directly involved in creating the curriculum and training teachers how to teach the material. Washington, Montana, Idaho, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Oregon have passed this kind of legislation, and other states, including Connecticut, are currently considering it. I hope that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will demonstrate its commitment to Indigenous youth as these other states have by supporting S1529 and H2421. Thank you.
Nice job, Kisha. It sounds like we had very similar situations growing up, experiences, I should say, in public schools, which is sad. I'm sorry that you also had that experience. I also have a similar experience on the other end as a teacher. So I teach 6th grade science and social studies, like I said, and every year, the first day of school is one of my favorites but also one of the saddest days of the year for me. And here's why. I get to see 75 brand new faces that I'm going to get really close with over the year. And, they're going to all become, the Newcomb homeroom that will go on forever. And I get to tell them a little bit about myself after they tell me, their interests and all that. And I start by saying that I'm Native American. And they have no idea. They have no idea what Native American means. So I say, I'm Indigenous. I'm an Aboriginal. I'm Mashpee Wampanoag. So does that mean you're like from Africa? Those are the responses I get. I have people tell me, other adults, they're still existing? Yeah, here I am. Probably don't want to say that. Yeah, here I am, because I don't look like the Disney princess Pocahontas. And that's the only way I can get my students to resonate with me. I have to use Disney's Pocahontas to jog their memory. Now you understand what Native American is? Mind you, they're 12 years old, they're now in 6th grade, and Native introduction to Native Americans is in 3rd grade curriculum. 3rd grade. So why is it that 3 years after you begin, learning about Native American culture and the history of the United States, why is it that you don't know what a Native American is? Wait, it gets better. Their school mascot at the time was the Hanover Indians. What? With a headdress and everything. And my students cannot make the connection that their logo with the Native American headdress and me being Native American, right? There's no connection. They don't get it. That's a problem. And this is every single year like clockwork. So next year on the first day of school, I know what I'm gonna get. And I'm gonna have to explain to my 75 students. The only thing I wish I could do was be able to be the social studies teacher for the whole grade, because I'm only getting to change 75 lives. And there's way more. There's about 200 in the grade that I don't even get to touch. And instead, I have become a token Native American teacher, not just in my school, all over the state. I've been asked to speak because for someone who is not Indigenous to then educate students on somebody else's culture, I totally understand. That's kind of maybe uncomfortable for you. So they often turn to me. All right, I get it. But why do you turn to me? Why do the other teachers turn to me in the first place to educate them on my culture? You went to the same schools. Didn't you learn it? No. It starts with the education. The teachers will get the education and will be able to share it with the students accurately, because there's only one of me on the South Shore at that particular school at that particular moment in time. We can't be everywhere. So our job as community members that are trying to make a better world for the next generation, we have to choose the right side of history. Teach the whole story, teach it correctly. Explain to your students why it's not okay to walk around with a headdress on your track uniforms or your football helmets. Did you earn those eagle feathers? Did you know they're eagle feathers? Do you know the importance, the significance of eagles, of feathers, of every part of Earth to Native Americans? Do you know that? Then you cannot wear it. You didn't earn it. And I can't tell you how shocked my students are when I tell them all of this. They don't ever want social studies to end because the content, right? What I actually teach is so real and it's raw, and they want to know. So we are doing an injustice to the next generation by continuing to do what we've always done and teach one side of the story. Oh, I have so much more I could say, but I know I'm running out of time. I will pass it on to the next